Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Lights on Data Show. Today, we're going to talk about how to seek, solicit, and speak data. And Kim mentioned that there are two hidden S's that we're going to talk about. I'm looking forward to that. But first, let me introduce Kim. Kimberly Herrington, data journalist and creator of the Buffalo Business Intelligence. So, Kimberly has a wealth of experience getting hands on with data in the health world and is excited to find stories in numbers. Well, that's exciting on its own. She stays on top of health analytics trends to create clever data stories and content that brings value to a variety of organizations. She currently holds the worldwide title of 2020 Data Literacy Advocate of the Year. And she has also been recognized as one of the 20 emerging influencers in 2020 for big data science, and analytics. Narrative Science is has listed Kimberly as one of the top 60 data changemakers to know. And if that's not impressive enough, Kimberly is the inaugural data journalist at a large healthcare organization. An innovator and a super connector, Kim Harrington has been building her local analytics community in Buffalo, New York, through her networking group, Buffalo Business Intelligence. And she's been doing that since 2017. She's currently a finalist for her Volunteer Wi-Fi Warriors work for 2 Infotech WNY Awards in the categories of Good Neighbor and Women in Tech. Welcome, Kim.
Thank you, George. It's a pleasure to be here with you and to support you as well on your channel. That's amazing.
Appreciate that. So there's a lot of things to talk about. I would like to encourage everybody that's joining in live to let us know where they're joining us from. It's always nice to see really the breadth that the community has, and the fact that they're really chiming in from all over the place. So it's always nice to hear from everybody. And as Kabenga is mentioning, Rockstar Kim, she is a rock star for sure. She is quite awesome. Hi, Alberto. Now, the data journalist, that must be like the title that everybody in data science is seeking to get. How did you become a data journalist?
So it was an interesting path. Obviously, as you said before, I am the only data journalist actually in my regional area, even in the area of Western New York. And so when it came to like becoming this data journalist, it came from using a variety of my background. I really loved just digging into interesting questions. So I come really from a world of business intelligence. So that's where my real core knowledge of data and analytics and information came from. And I got to a point where I was trying to push creation of new dashboards and whatnot, and running into those issues of what story people wanted to tell with them, and not being able to get people on the same page, and like figuring out how to put together like a framework for gathering requirements, and to actually create the final visuals that would be useful and actionable. And through that process, I actually met Miko Yuck of BI Brains. And she ended up becoming my mentor, and I was taking her
Oh,
courses.
wow.
Yeah, it was great. She had this webinar, like the very first time that she offered this webinar. It had to be in like 2018, where it was just a free webinar of like, be the chief data storyteller for your organization. And I'm like, what's that? That's interesting, And so I followed in that, and really started learning about how to be an excellent storyteller from that, and really applying it and realizing that my background and my love for writing, my love for creative writing, and my love for community building as well, through just bringing people together to talk about their business intelligence issues that they had from all different aspects. Buffalo Business Intelligence itself had started from the fact that I couldn't find somebody to teach me how to use Tableau back in not too long ago in 2017. I couldn't find somebody. I couldn't even pay somebody in my area to come teach me Tableau, because the community wasn't nearly where it is now. So I'm like, okay, if their room doesn't exist, I'll create it myself. Called up Tableau, asked them if I could start a thing. They looked it up. They said, oh, there's not enough licenses in your area. Have a great day. I was like, well, okay, well, if there's not enough interest, then I'll just make it, tool agnostic. And so we brought in people for Power BI and Tableau and Sizense and all of those different types of organizations, Dundas. We just started bringing people together. And we realized we all have the same problems.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody is having the same problems in storytelling,
Mm-hmm.
governance,
Mm-hmm.
data literacy, like you name it, everyone's having the same issues.
Well said. Well said.
So I just ended up coming into the data storytelling role because I was poached by I was acting as a business intelligence project coordinator, and I had like kind of been looking but not really. And the person said, "Well, hey, if you did have a dream job description, what would that look like?" People do ask those questions, y'all. You
Wow.
need to have your idea of what your dream job description would look like. And I said to him, I said, well, this job for this chief data storyteller I found in California, and I loved what it did. And I sent it to him. I said, I don't think Buffalo is ready for this position. And he happened to say, well, this is really interesting because we've had an idea for a data journalist role and we've been kicking it around, but we haven't found the right person yet. And
Mm-hmm.
so when I like put it there, and so everything just ended up working out. And so here I sit.
So perfect timing and a great combination of the skills and passion that you were offering and what they were needing.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. It's so important. People right now, they say they think a resume itself is the thing that they need to get their next job in analytics. But when you think about it, the jobs of tomorrow don't necessarily exist today, but the only person that can articulate them is you. So when I was writing out, would it be okay to talk to you about what a data journalist does? Okay, so like what a data journalist actually does itself. So I act as like an internal consultant. So I help people that come to me for one-on-one sessions and like help them work through what they want to do with data and analytics. I act as a storyteller and navigator. So I tell people to think that of me as Google Maps. Right? They know their data better than I
That's a
do, and
great
they know
analogy.
where they're going with it. Right? I love it
Mm-hmm.
because
Mm-hmm.
you know your in-laws at your final destination better than I do, but you need to have a conversation with someone. And sometimes you need to have it with someone that's not on your team, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because you feel like everybody's so in it that you want a clean perspective, but who do you go to?
Mm-hmm.
So you need somebody designated at an organization that says, I can talk to you about anything. Just come to me and you can either you tell me ahead of time, like, do you want me to give you feedback or do you just need somebody to talk to to get it out there? But you have the conversation. You can ignore Siri when she tells you to go a different way. That's fine. Again, you know your stuff better than I do. But the last like major role is to act as a data viz muse. My background also is in improv comedy. I don't know if you knew that about me.
I knew that. Yeah. I don't know if the audience did, but yeah.
It was
That,
fun, but there's like never say no to different requests and like always be thinking of new choice for new things. So
mm-hmm.
if you find
Mm-hmm.
out something's wrong, new choice, think of a new piece of an environment that you can look forward to. So
And you
yeah,
think that that skill, that experience really gave you this adaptability in your work,
definitely.
just to go with the flow and. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So if any of you out there have kids, let us know in the chat if you've got kids. I'm curious. As a parent, I always like to know. So feel free to like pop in and let us know if you've got kids. But one of the strongest things that you can do, other than just reading to your child on a daily basis, is when they get a little bit older, and you're signing them up for activities in that weird tween phase, sign them up for improv class. Because I promise you, if you try to sign up executives for an improv class when they're adults, you're not going to have a great reaction. And you need those skills like early on. So if you have a young one, consider putting them in an improv class. I know Comedy Sports is nationwide. So try checking that out.
That's awesome. I just want to say hello to Val Logan for joining us
Wow.
today, and Ravit and Scott Taylor, of
Ruby,
course, and
Scott.
Manjunata and Prasenjit. Hi, everybody. And Scott Taylor agrees that improv, it's great. I kind of have a feeling he's done improv too. Don't know if that's true, but he seems like the kind of person that he would do improv. So, um, I have a question. I'm very curious about this. And I don't know if you're dealing with this or if you have dealt with this at work, but do you find that sometimes you're going in these meetings with the stakeholders
Mhm.
to try and understand what do they actually need, but instead they're either unsure,
Mhm.
so it's hard if you don't have a draft to put in front of their face to look over and then provide comments and say, well, no, this is not the type of visualization I need. Kind of flip this around, turn
Mhm.
this into a bar chart, or no, actually want the pie chart or something.
Mhm.
So they either don't know anything what they need, or
Mhm.
they tell you exactly, no, I just want a table. Give me a table. That's what I need. And if you have dealt with this, how do you go about it to provide them with something better, something that's maybe worth more of the data story that you can provide through better visualizations?
So, how do you provide better? So for that question in particular, is I work again based off of a business intelligence dashboard formula, aka data dictionary that I'd gotten from
Hmm.
BI Brains. I actually modified it though to add a first column before the whole framework to like get people to know. And I give people an opportunity to stop what they're doing and we have a conversation and I use things called motivational interviewing techniques. It's a term that we take from the land of psychology from your therapists and everyone not like that, to like actually really key into what the other people are saying and ask them instead of what they want to see, like what questions do they have. So, like, what are they curious about? And
Mm-hmm.
they literally list out all of those questions that they want. So, like, what if they had a magic wand, what would they have information for? And they have to write out all those things. And then you can break down each question, like larger question, into its parts in single cells, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And then you go through the rest of the requirements gathering phase that you do through BI Brains, but to figure out, like the owner of who's going to own the information, like what's the definition for those metrics. You're figuring out how to get the information, where's the data source coming from itself. And the key with that is to act more as a facilitator than a deliverer.
Mm-hmm.
As one of the main tenets of MicroShares is, if you define it, then you own it.
Mm-hmm.
So this is really, really important, this concept. Um, as you're working with those different users, it's so easy for them to come back at you and say, oh, well, this doesn't do what I want it to do, etc. How many of you, I guarantee you, there's people listening right now, either currently now or in the future, that you create something and you send it off and you get an email back, TY. And then you look at the, get insights to see how often people have looked at the dashboard. You go back and you see, like you've asked at the beginning, how often are you going to make decisions with this dashboard or whatnot? And they'll be like, oh, every day I'm gonna use it every
Right.
day. This
Right.
database, I'll use it all the time. And it's a month later and they haven't accessed it.
Yeah.
It's
You know,
because
I've heard this a lot
Mhm,
from consultants as well, but other business intelligence professionals that they're mentioning, they're working against the clock to make that deliverable because they're being told constantly, this is urgent. We need this right now. We need this report.
mhm,
We need this dashboard. And then maybe they're looking at it once
mhm,
and it's still like a month or two until they're, getting feedback on it
mhm,
because it wasn't as important.
mhm. Yeah. It's crazy. So that's why you have to get them involved from in the beginning and make sure that when you are putting together that whole process of documenting all the things, showing them you can't actually build something until they help you answer the questions along the way.
Hmm.
So if they're really truly a partner along the way, then you can actually deliver them something and people that have been a part of it know what it takes to actually get to that final result. And when they have that final result, they're more likely to adopt it and use it, but they're also less likely to ask you at the end of the process to tack on one more thing, because if
Mhm.
they've gone through the painful process, right? In some cases it is a little bit painful, of like gathering the information of like where are we going to get the information, etc. Because they now know the trauma of what it takes to put into the magic of a visual, right? So then they're not going to throw things at you last minute, and if they do, they're going to come prepared to the table. But with this, that whole topic, I would like to bring it back to that seek, solicit, and speak. I can hear
Yes.
Scott in the back of my mind say, he's just like, I heard her say something about seek, solicit, speak. Kim, get to the point.
Yes.
I've got
And by the way, he did mention that he's done improv, he has kids, so two
Mhm.
for two there.
Very nice. So the topic at hand that we had talked about, out of curiosity, when you first heard me like say that I wanted to talk to you about like seek, solicit, speak, what came to mind for you? What did you think that this would be about?
Well, initially I thought, the journey that the data needs to go through in order to become, valuable for whoever's consuming it.
Hmm. Hmm. That is true. It is a part of that. When I had the way that I came to the seek, solicit, and speak, like that this framework for a data strategy, it came out of working on data culture and data literacy initiatives and data storytelling initiatives,
Hmm.
really, right? So anytime you are a new or existing person that's coming into a company, the first thing that you need to know is, where do I go to find existing information? Seek. Okay, so
Hmm.
where am I going to? Where's the place that I go to find existing information? What to find the documented list of all of the reports that you have at a company, so I can kind of get an idea, like where do I go to find these various data sets and tools and references and things? And we get so wrapped up in our day-to-day work that I feel like we forget these simple steps, right?
Yeah.
That people, we have all these different places, but they're not unified. So there was a great meme I think Andrew put out there the other day of like how you think your data platform looks like, and it was like an orchestra, a symphony, and then what it actually looks like, and it was a one-man band like that, like had the machine, the flute here and like the drum behind his head. So it's all of those pieces, but it's just individual. So how do we unify this to make it the symphony? So we have to start teaching our people how to seek, locate, or find existing information or data sets. Solicit, find a place to where people go to request
Mm.
new or modifications of existing data sets and whatnot, or make new reports. And then speak. How do our users read, work with, analyze, and argue information? That's where the data literacy and storytelling functions kind of fit into underneath this, right? So that's where those features fit in, is where to actually use the information, right? And like using, that's where you would put more like training and whatnot for things like Python, R, etc. But in order to have this whole approach, you have to have those unified places where people can go to seek and solicit, and they have to be someplace that's accessible. So this is
Right.
one of those other hidden S's is share, right?
Mm.
Okay, so there's a couple aspects to share, which is why I don't have share as like a headline for it, because sometimes it can get confusing for people. Like share has to do more with the nitty gritty for the technical people. So that's for the technical side. This is not something that you would do for like an agency wide deploy. You don't have to teach them about share for this thing, because it's really just the people that are worrying about access, etc. But the other thing that is important when we're talking about share is making a place where you're storing this information for seek and solicit in something like a wiki that all of your analytics people have the ability to access and edit on the fly,
Hmm.
and without the fear of it being perfect. So that's that fifth hidden S is safety,
Mm.
specifically psychological safety that encompasses the whole thing. Because the question I want you to ask yourself for your organization is, do my employees feel safe speaking up and asking questions or seeking clarification in a public forum in front of their peers.
Hmm. Like I think Andrew was mentioning this as well, that at Amazon they have this, fail quickly, fail often
Mm-hmm.
mentality,
Mm-hmm.
and that really enforces that safety that I'm allowed to fail, but let me just fail quickly, see what doesn't work, and find go another direction, find the way to not fail next time.
Exactly. Embracing that forward failure, break things better. That those things are all really important. But really, I think there's a lot of times that we get so caught up in the nitty gritty of what we're trying to do, like the different systems that we're trying to parse into the things. And we've got these big initiatives along the way that we're missing the larger picture as to how to shape, our data strategy and inform our data culture. And that really comes down to the boiled down of the three things for an enterprise wide is making it easy for people to seek, solicit, and speak information.
Hmm.
So before you can do any of those extra like crazy things that you're trying to do, you really need to make sure that you have those honed in on.
And so many organizations really don't have this base layer in place.
Hmm.
And I know in particular for the seek part,
Hmm.
a lot of this information mostly lives in people's heads.
Right.
Or if there's some sort of an artifact, if there's some sort of a report inventory or a data dictionary that
Hmm.
holds some of this information,
Hmm.
it's usually, uh, business unit focused. And
Hmm.
then there are multiple ones that don't
Right.
really talk to each other. And there might
Right.
be some overlap and might be some contradictions happening too. So there's definitely not something that's overarching that people could access
Hmm.
easily.
Well, this is where a data journalist or so data journalist has like three different versions of a data journalist. I really think like I didn't have any control over what my particular title was. But I really think there's three different classes. There's the data journalist that is the like when people typically hear the word data journalist, I feel like they think of the story I tell myself is that they think of like New York Times, Washington Post, like the people that are
Yep.
creating those amazing graphics and like
Hmm.
making them dynamic and turning data around in super fast timelines for a news release or like writing all of the white papers and whatnot to have all this information for public consumption. um, and the other part of the data journalist itself, like from that perspective, is the person that asks questions. I don't know about you, but the person that I see when I think of like a news reporter is I think of like old timey cartoons and comics of like a person with like a fedora with like a number like hanging out
Hmm.
of their hat, like chasing somebody down with an audio recorder, like, sir, tell me what's going on, like really getting into it and turning over rocks. So that's a data journalist. The second one is a data storyteller, which is more of an internal role. And that's a person that's actually going to the different partners and asking people what they're working on and really trying to help facilitate the conversation between uh, different areas to actually tell other people what other people are working on and pitching up stories internally to like a marketing team, et cetera, to let them know like, hey, these are things that we need to highlight for the organization. This is like really looking at that and also serving as a person that can help internal executives up their storytelling skills to actually communicate the value of the different products that they're working on, or talking with individual developers. Again, I told you one of my main roles is working with internal developers that can bring me a visual and we can talk about what they're doing and I can give them ideas and suggestions. That's the data storytelling work of
Yeah.
like how to frame it up,
Yeah.
like with the snapshot transactions, kind of like
Yeah.
really looking at that information, the who, what, why of what's going on with their story. And then the last one is an analytics translator. The
Hmm.
analytics translator to me is somebody that's like breaking into the data journalism, data storytelling field that is a subject matter expertise in one of the business functions on the outsides, that has an interest in data and analytics, but might not necessarily be 100% there yet,
Hmm.
right? So it's a great way to like kind of dip your toes in the water for in the field of analytics to be like to come and work with the analytics teams, work creating products but you can speak the business of what's happening, and yet you still have that ability to ask questions. You kind of have to get out over that imposter syndrome and just say, that's just another person. That person that has the title of a data scientist that is making over 100K, don't worry about that. They're just another person. And if you do not talk to them, they will not know what problems they need to solve.
Right.
So
I actually wanted to ask you if you are working with like a business analyst to help elicit those requirements from the stakeholders and help you with that process, help the data journalist with that process.
So it depends. Usually most things that I see on a day-to-day basis are where people have already gotten to the final end visualization and they can't figure out why it's not being used, why it's not being adopted. That is, and the other place is right at the very beginning where people are in the ideation phase of like what they're trying to do and like how they might measure something. So those are the two phases that I help out with most often.
That's great.
Mhm.
Well, by the sounds of it, any and every organization would need to have a data journalist, at least one.
Yeah, I think that they should. I definitely, I don't know if anybody, I'm curious, when you hear the term data storytelling, for those that are watching live, do you think it is a skill or do you think it's a profession?
hmm Good question. And I've definitely seen the data storyteller as a title
Hmm.
posted. Not very often, but
Hmm.
it's starting to trend.
Hmm.
And Ravita was mentioning data journalist is such a cool tag for sure. And Robin really loved your symphony analogy. I think we
Again,
might have
Andrew
to quote
Berkowitz.
that.
Yes.
And yeah, good point, Scott Taylor. I'm trying to keep count of all the S's. That's 5, right?
There's 5,
Three
yes.
three main ones.
So there's the 3 main ones for the enterprise. So we've got the seek, solicit, and speak as the main ones, and then share and safety as the ones that you have to share with the executives on the other side of it. But yeah, these I haven't gotten I don't have a book deal or anything for this. So if you're a publisher, call me. But nah. I just through Buffalo Business Intelligence, the whole thing for Buffalo Business Intelligence was based off of the courses to attend different trainings, and was over $300. And I'm a regular person. I have student loan debt with my family, like I'm a young mom, trying to get through this stuff. And I like facilitating, getting free information and trying to share things with other people, because ultimately you're still going to need somebody's help, like if you're actually trying to implement things. But when you're talking conceptually, be open, again, fail forward, you share whatever things that you can, as long as you can share them. And I'm getting a lot of these examples too, I'm getting them from within mostly the community itself, because within the community, people come to me and ask me for opinions on different visualizations and stuff. I come from a world of community-based organizations where it was like different nonprofits. So I like healthcare is my passion, and really just helping out like social determinants of health, making sure there's access and equity for all. I work on the Western New York Digital Equity Inclusion Coalition, and we're really putting together this great process. My main ask right now that I keep bringing up at each one of our board member meetings is, okay, well, this is great, but how do we send the funding from this to people that don't have internet right now so they can sit on this board? Like, let's get them a computer and a Wi-Fi card so they can sit in and participate on these board meetings to help us, so we can hear the voice. Something important in community-based organization work, but is also important in our work that I don't think people are talking about, George, is nothing for us without us.
Mm-hmm.
Have you ever heard this?
I haven't, no.
So the theory with nothing for us without us is the concept of, don't create a seek platform without asking the people that would be contributing to it
Yeah.
for assistance and how they feel like it should be a part of it, and because it needs to be theirs. And the other thing you can think about that too is when you're building different data visualizations, we were talking about how do you get somebody to say that says, like, oh, I need this, this, and this versus, oh, I just need a table. How do you bring them on board is you have to do it together. So stop thinking of yourself as like a developer or deliverer. Start trying to think of yourself as a facilitator where you're working with someone and really like projecting that of, I alone bring everything. No, together we go together.
Absolutely.
Right.
This reminds me of the story. I used to work for this organization. I'm not gonna mention their name, but for the longest time, some of their clients were mentioning that, we need some sort of a way for us to check our invoicing status and, log into my account and see where's my invoicing at, and kind of manage my profile as a company and my business relationship with you guys. So then one of our directors had the idea. I was like, okay, well, let's build something internally so we can provide our clients that, because that's what they're seeking for. And we did. It was like a 6 months project. Something was built, looked great, functionality all there. What happened though, they never involved these clients. Never. So they just presented them at the end like as a gift. Here, this is what you asked for. It flopped. Everybody was like, this is not what we asked for. This is not what we needed. We didn't need this and that. We just spent all this money into this. And now are you going to ask for more money from my projects because you put your resources into something I did not need? So
if other users are feeling this too, please post in the chat, like your groans, your gurs, your gifs of reactions for how you feel when like you feel in George's pain with us.
And Kim, we have some answers for your question on if data storyteller is more of a skill or a job function.
Okay.
So Kate, who is the owner of Datacated, mentioned that data storytelling is more of a skill in her opinion. Though you can have it as a title too, I guess. Gus is mentioning amazing conversation. He agrees with Kate as well. Susan Walsh, the classification guru, is mentioning that it's a skill to me. Kibet Brian, I think data storytelling is a skill. Ilonka thinks it could be both. So, yeah.
So if it's a skill versus a role, so here's the thing that I want to bring to people's attention of for those that are just like, it's just a skill, we just need to teach it. As with anything, it can be a skill, but unless you have a shepherd for it, like you need to have somebody that is like, in order to get people to be better at this, you need to have someone that's going to lead the pack and have it always be first, forefront of mind, right? So that's why I do think it's a role in addition to a skill. So yes, it is both. 100% it's both. We need more people to be better storytellers, but in order to make sure that that is implemented across an enterprise, you need to have someone that's dedicated to that role. So Brett Dykes, he talks about this too. He just put together an article, I think, for Forbes about how we need more resources for data storytellers to actually make sure that this is happening in organizations. Because yes, it's a skill, but in order to make a tree grow, you need to give it water, kind of thing. So who's holding the can? If no one's holding the can, like how are you going to make sure that everyone gets watered?
Well said. And as Gus was mentioning, it's a rare skill, but it doesn't need to be a rare skill.
No, it's okay. So people have asked me, like, where could I find like data journalists, data storytellers? They seem like rare unicorns, and right now, yes, they are, but it is pretty simplistic. It really it's I don't want to oversimplify, but the place that I would really start with, if you were looking for a data storyteller, like a dedicated person, of course, you could always try to reaching out to Kate for her dedicated people and her data story students, as well as you could always reach out to like the BI Brains, Miko Yuck, to like see if she's got people that are available, or Data Viz Society. Those are great places that I would go to like post looking for jobs for those kinds of things. But then the other thing I would look at is I would look for somebody with a marketing affinity within your organization. So you might actually find your data storyteller in the communications department, in your marketing team, and see if they want to get away necessarily from the harsh deadlines and the quick turnarounds for some of this stuff, and like more into the conceptual work to some degree, because you can learn the basics of, really, I would get them into business intelligence and really just understanding what the field of business intelligence is, to like get that around, and then give them some data governance courses through your teachings, George. But really, they have to kind of have that like all around view, but they don't need to have super deep knowledge, right? As an improviser, I was trained to think a mile wide and an inch deep. Okay. So I do have a variety of experiences that came to this. I think I had posted once, if you go through my LinkedIn, you'll find like search for like hashtag T-shaped individuals, like where you have all of the different types of, surface skills that you have, but then you have things that are deep. So the way that I'm looking at my T shape is actually like as a nail almost that's looking sideways. So I have like the row of all the different like things that I know, like I'm good with like startups and improv and networking and those skills. But then when you look deeply, I have deeper knowledge when it comes to data governance, data literacy, data storytelling. Just building those relationships, some of the political stuff that you have to navigate in these instances, but and of course business intelligence. But really start looking at that kind of stuff for what you might want to try.
That's great advice. We have a couple of questions that are coming in here.
Let's go for it.
One from Anju. For a data journalist, what do truth and alternate truth mean in the world of data where opinions matter?
Sure. So truth and alternate truth. So for this, it really comes down to making sure that people understand the sources of information as to where they're coming from, and getting to have real discussions about like what is like a peer reviewed, piece of information versus not. I think one of the hardest things to get people to adopt self-service analytics is when they start looking at, well, where is the data source? Where is it coming from? Right. So the creation of your teams for creating different like certified or like giving them medal levels for different access levels for data sets. Like, so if you were going to do like a medal level for trustworthiness of data, like really, you'd have like an Excel spreadsheet. Like if you have a final data viz that incorporates stuff from like an Excel worksheet, it would be like a catastrophic / bronze level of trustworthiness. Versus if you have something that is created 100% using computer, data from actual behaviors that people are doing on the computer, that would be closer to a gold or platinum. But I really think truth versus alternate truth, it really just comes down to trustworthiness. So I like to drive back to that conversation of how do we let our users know what data sets are and that you can trust them, and really build into when you're trying to show people where these new like self-service analytics are, you have to spend the time and kind of go overboard to create trainings that show how you built that data set and show them the tables. You have to show that those users how that was baked. Because if you I know a lot of different developers, they won't use something unless they built the model themselves. So, perhaps putting together a course, if you've got the data, this data self-service analytics tool, making a module that says build the self-service analytics tool yourself, like, and it just walks them through like a course of like, here's this table from this. We chose this because of XYZ, put it here. So they're not actually building maybe the table themselves, like the thing itself, but they're going through the motions to feel like they did which makes them retain that knowledge. I hope that helps.
It does. Thank you. I'm very curious about your creative process. Do
Mhm.
you do you draw something on paper as a draft? Do you put a wireframe together in like PowerPoint, or do you just go into the the data viz tool and start mocking something up? What do you prefer?
So it really, if I zoomed out, my husband would be horrified, and so would I. Because I'm a tactile person that likes to touch things.
Hmm.
But I also like to use different multimedia type things. So for when I'm doing it, so when I'm doing things like with my SOS sessions, the story or strategy sessions where I'm talking with people about like what they're trying to accomplish, I actually like to just first to start with a conversation. So the creative process starts and ends with great communication.
Mm.
And usually great conversation starts with communication and conversation. And I like to record those. I get permission. Like you start the recording with the, like thanks for your permission. We're recording this, and you really just have a conversation about what the other person is curious about or what you're trying to get out. Like, and the first thing is I ask people, um, after someone has come to this communication, like your communication can be in a data viz format, it can be in a Power BI like thing, it could be a PowerPoint file, whatever the mode of conversation, the thing that you're showing to people, it you want to ask them, if you come to it, what do you want them thinking, feeling, or doing differently after they've encountered this? So if they've come to this database, what do you want them thinking, feeling, or doing differently as a result of experiencing this communication?
Hmm.
And from there, it really gets real, right? Because the people, they think they know what they want they want people to do, but then when they're like asked to like put it out there and like really write it down and stuff like that, it feels weird. The other thing, like when you're writing, sometimes it feels weird, so that's why I like the conversation, because people are more likely to say what they actually mean than they are to write it. So that's why I think conversation for me is best, especially with the recording of it. So you can actually go back and you can hear inflection, and you have to like pay attention. Lie to Me is a great show to watch to get just like a basics of like inflection and like posturing and things. Like video chat for me is always better than um anything else, because you can play a little bit off of what somebody is like doing, their body language
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
positioning. But you can really kind of get from that and like get those people like what they're actually doing. And then so from there you take that recording, and I would go through that steps of like walking through that, like, well, what do people want to know, looking at that, thinking about what you want people thinking and feeling, right? So how would you get people to get to the emotion
Hmm.
that you're trying to project with it? And how do you change their behavior, right? Because emotions are what drives our behaviors. So you need the emotions, but you also need the behavior, and you need to know what the actual message is of what you want them doing. And so it really comes down to that, and having those conversations with people early on. Also, I would tend to walk them through, say you're building a data visualization, here's the about tab. Like, let's imagine the about tab for it. And please, if you are listening out there, make sure that whenever you're creating a data visualization, it has an about tab that walks through, who is the primary audience of this set of visuals? Okay, what is it that they're coming to this visual for? Like, what are they going? Why build this for them? And what's the actions that they're going to take after looking at this visual set? I have a full list of 4 questions. I don't have it off the top of my head right here for it, but by doing that early on with people, like, it helps you to identify who the 3 like levels of your audience is, like from a population, protocol and person level, like of like which different people can do these different things. And just looking at those different pieces of information and documenting these things, but through those conversations. But you'll often find when you go to create an about tab for the visual before you even like go into requirements gathering, that people are stuck. They don't know what they want to do, and that's why it becomes difficult to actually do like the requirements gathering in the first place, because people are just like people don't know what they want. So
Yeah.
you have to become an expert facilitator to
Yeah.
get from them what you want.
Amazing tips like Susan is mentioning. And I would add, I think with the about tab, it's great to have some of those definitions too, to make sure that,
Yes.
yeah, people are looking at those business terms and they all understand what they're looking at, and maybe something about the data sources. Kay was mentioning that
Yes, correct.
trustworthiness. Yes. Kay was mentioning that her about tabs used to save her so much time when referring back to things created years ago. And
about tabs will save you for scope creep.
Oh, that's a good point.
Because if somebody comes and looks at your dashboard and they're just like, oh, I want, like they look at the visual and they're like, well, I need this, this, and this added to it for it to be useful. You'd be like, okay, but that might be for another customer, like that might be another version for something else, because this one was built for this, and that way you don't have to like keep iterating. But I did like Val's comment that you just put up there. That was definitely, yes.
Yeah, the good writing is clear, thinking made visible. A quote from Bill Wheeler. Because you're a tactile person, wanted to mention I've created this for my organization. So I laminated 2 sheets of paper, one landscape, one what's the other one? Portrait. And with the sort of the header and the footer of how a dashboard would need to look like based on the branding and all that stuff. So the standard pieces, then laminated that with the idea that, okay, well, now let's draft stuff, right? When we create a new visualization, before doing anything on the computer, let's just quickly draw things. It didn't work too well because the people that are great data visualization, they don't like to draw by hand. So they're great when they do it digitally, not so great when they do it by hand. But I've seen this other thing at a company where they kind of taken a similar concept, but instead they sort of printed like a square box for like a pie chart, and a bar chart and a line graph, and all the different types of viz that you could have. And then they had like some Scotch tape or double tape on it. And instead they would just kind of place them all over and see, okay, well, we kind of need something like this. So that was quite tactile.
I've done something similar for that. Like, so when it gets to like the end phase, like, so like that was what I was describing is like the beginning, the ideation phase for a visual. If I'm working with somebody that's a little bit like further down the road that actually has like what things that they want to do, I use the visualization storyboard, a visual storyboard. Sorry, Miko's visual storyboard. That's like, again, it's a landscape document that actually has like where the title is, like the purpose statement, the snapshot transaction things on the side. But then you have Post-it notes on this big laminated thing. It's like takes up the size of my wall. It's about the same size as this poster. And I've got Post-it notes that have the questions of what people are actually trying to find out, like what they want to know. And I stick the Post-it notes all over it to organize it with people to like be like, okay, so what is the main important thing, and putting that using, golden ratio and looking at all of those things to find out where is the eye going to travel.
Wow. Well, Mohammed is, reiterating what Susan said. Amazing tips. Now, we're coming to an end, but I do want to take one more question. By the way, there's so many questions coming in.
Oh, good.
But there's one that I want to take from Valerie. What does a great day look for you? And what does a tough day look for you as a data storyteller? Okay. And what really keeps you going through those days?
So a great day for me, honestly, the first thing a great day to me looks like is when people keep their meetings. I don't know if to be honest about it for a minute, but I think one of the most frustrating things as a data storyteller and as background of an analyst is that whenever you have a meeting with someone, I prepare, right? So I set everything up. Like I've got my visual storyboard set up of what past work was, and you have the different things in different areas. And then, if you get a last minute person that's like canceling on you, And you're just like, okay, like, and on the one hand, you're like, all right, I'll put that other way. And it's so much easier working from home. This is why I never ever want to go back to the office, is because this is much better. Because like if I'm frustrated about it, I could just go for a walk on a treadmill or something, like go get some good coffee from upstairs and reset and think of something else. But a great day would be that when as people are doing those, as they're coming to those meetings, I get engaged. My battery throughout this entire pandemic has been completely recharged every time I get to have a story or strategy session. If I have like at least one or two story or strategy sessions where people come in to talk to me, or if I'm talking with just like a community member, like volunteering my time for a mentor and having a great conversation about what they're trying to do and what they're trying to accomplish, and at the end they tell me that they gained value from the session, that is great for me. That is 100% what charges up my battery to go into the next thing. And creating media and stuff like that, and putting it out there and then being able to move forward rather than having to justify it. So if I create something and I put out there, like I put together a framework and I say, let's use this, or how about you use, like, what do you think of using this? And they say, yes. So moving straight forward, like moving on with that. When people have to like come back around and want a lot more clarification, or they start moving backwards instead of forwards in a conversation, that can be really tough. Where they get this is a new term. Have you ever heard the term bike shedding?
I haven't.
It's a real term. So imagine imagine like the Googleplex. Okay, like, so the concept is if someone is building something like the Googleplex, and it's like a multi-million-dollar operation to build this system, right? And then like we're at the very end of the process, and the last thing we have to do is figure out where to put the bike shed, okay, on this property to finalize the thing, put it into production. And then people get caught up in turf wars, where to put the bike shed, like, no, it belongs here, no, it belongs there, or no, like you get really like put into there, but okay, but the bike shed really needs to have like the vertical slats, no, it should have the bike that should be hung up on the wall, like what's the most efficient, like, and you're just like, it is a bike shed. Like this tiny little thing from everything else. How do we get past bike shedding? So like that is, bike shedding is a pet peeve of mine when it comes to launching large initiatives. Yes. it's just a matter of, all right, let's get past the bike shed, but calling it out. You're saying, okay, hearing it, like, because again, you want people to feel like they are heard. So you say, yes, this is super important. And it's baked in, but later on in this process. So let's redirect back to here. And that's sometimes hard to do.
Right. Tell us, now we're coming to a close, but tell us a little bit about the Buffalo Business Intelligence.
Sure. Last but not least, I would love to have you guys like come follow us. We do have a LinkedIn group. So even if you're not from Buffalo, if you are driving to Buffalo, the sign literally says Buffalo is an all-America city. So it's literally the sign as you come to Buffalo. And we are. So please feel free to join. We have a LinkedIn group, which I'll get you that link for the LinkedIn group itself. I did get you the link to our next event. We have events twice a year on the first Wednesday of June and December. It is completely word of mouth group of analytics boots on the ground professionals that are coming to this space that is safe, that is not sponsored by anyone. It is literally put on 100% for free. My requirements when I host it is that you either give me free parking and free food for people that come to it, because I want to make it as accessible as possible for people to come to, because it's off work hours. It's not in the middle of the day. It's like at the end of the day. So the people that are coming to this are nerds like you and I. And so there's always like that kinship of like, what are you spending your lunch break? Oh, I'm spending it doing a podcast thing with George. I'm talking about data governance stuff. So the people that come to this are your people that are just excited. We get people that are there from all industries that are using all tools. It's a pitch-free environment, again, where there's no selling allowed. So people can just actually connect and talk openly about what data problems that they're having or what things that they want help with. And really sharing stories. Val came and spoke to us, not this past summer, but the summer before, about data literacy. So come, soak up the information and just really connect with others in the community, because I feel like we don't have enough connection. And
Yeah.
really, people think, like, why do I need to network as an analyst? Like, why is that important? People don't
Yeah.
understand that networking is about creating your safety net. So you can have that freedom to do crazy things at your work. Like, so you can just say to them, like, yeah, we need to seek, solicit, speak. Like, you could jump on that trapeze and like fly. And if you somehow should fall, that's where your network comes in. But you don't know that you need that. Like, a lot of times people are trying to build their networks when they're falling. That's not the time to do it.
And I posted a link for the next session, which will be in December. If you want to
Yep.
go check it out, and please subscribe to it and register for it. I've joined the last one that you had in June, and I'm not from Buffalo. I'm actually on the West Coast, and not even in the U.S., but in Canada. So and I was able to join that. So thank you so much for having me. And I have
No
to say, it's such a
problem.
welcoming group. You're such an amazing moderator. The
Thank you.
presentations were incredible, and yeah, the networking, of course. But everything that was shared there, much like this session, a lot of value was being given.
I kicked out a newsroom for that one. I'm still I've been like trying to get news coverage of these groups and sessions, and so I do a session on failure where it was like really important to me to like create psychological safety. And finally a newsroom actually came, and I'm just like, I'm sorry, we can't record that. So it was fun, like I put my attendees first for all of those things. But yeah, like, thank you so much for coming, George. I hope that you can connect with, I hope Jazz and you were able to find a way to chat sometime to bring that failure discussion to this platform. And if any of my other fellow creators are on here too, reach out if anyone wants to talk about failure and stuff. I've got a great speaker on it.
Yeah, she delivered quite an inspiring presentation.
Yeah.
All right, so thank you everybody for coming in, listening to the Seek, Solicit, and Speak Data, and of course the share and safety part of it. And definitely follow Kimberly Herrington on LinkedIn. She has amazing stuff to share. Please click that follow button as soon as you can, and check out the Buffalo Business Intelligence. And Kim, you'll share the LinkedIn group as well with us.
Yes, I will.
All right. Well, thank you so much. Have a wonderful Friday.
Thanks, everybody. Enjoy your lunch.
Enjoy your lunch. See you again next time.
Bye.